you have any test taking tips or mantras that you follow?
I'll jump in. I would say, generally speaking, and this is, overall test taking tips and particularly geared towards our certification process, don't get hung up on any single question. If you're not sure, you have to pick something. Just make sure that you mark that for review. If the answers are similar, if there are two similar answers, chances are it's probably one of those. So pick one of those ones that's super similar, mark it for review, and come back for it. That at least gives you like a 50% chance right away and keeps you from running out of time. The other tip that I would say is sometimes it's really easy to get caught up or confused by the scenario that they're giving. Try to see past the scenario and get to the actual topic that they're really asking about. I don't care about Cloud Co. I just need to see if they're asking about sharing rules. That's the thing that they're kind of getting at in that question, for example. But sometimes when you're reading it, you're like, okay, what's this company and what do they do? None of that actually matters. The real thing is they're trying to get to some feature or function of the product. If you can see past that and get to the thing that they're really trying to ask.
I've definitely read questions, and I think on PD1, I think I read each question probably 3 times, like, and just scratching my head, like, what are they saying there? I'm like, whatever, let's, just try and get through it. Anyone else?
Ones that have the multiple, and like it says pick 2 or pick 3. I found that if you try, I discovered this when I was taking one of the tests that I was taking, and I was like, hey, wait a second, these 2 answers go together and these 2 answers go together. Like, so I always come back to like profiles and sharing rules. So, when you get into security, oh, those 2, one is about profiles, one's about permission sets, and then the other one's about OWD and the other one's about a sharing. So those 2 answers go together. And I would figure out, okay, from those answers matching, then I would go back and reread the question and I would say, okay, are they asking me about like a profile or are they asking me about a sharing rule? And you know what I mean? So to me, the answers can give a little, window into the question.
Yeah, go ahead, Julie.
I was going to say some specific tips for if you're doing online proctored. I'm about an hour and a half away from our closest testing facility, so I've done quite a few online. And some things to note are that you don't have the paper and pencil when you're taking online proctored. So keep that in mind. For me, it's a little bit harder to do those designer scenario questions with no paper. I do like the paper, but I will say a couple things about taking online proctored is just anticipate that some stuff could go kind of sideways. You're not in that perfect testing environment, no matter how hard you try. So, one time I was taking an exam and my husband started printing something right behind my head, and I was like, is this 600 page? What manual are we printing here? Or there's the dogs barking, the delivery person is coming. One time I started celebrating too soon. My husband walked in and they said they were going to invalidate the test. I freaked out because that was the, developer. So just things will go things can get it's okay. And even if your, internet fails, you can resume the exam. You can't leave and come back. But they'll help you if there is some sort of hiccup. You can, you can restart it. You can start it the next day. Things happen with internet and things happen at home. So just know that also the proctors will sometimes ask you to pause and do something like speak out loud to make sure your sound is on so there's not someone, whatever. So those proctors might stop you, and that can be really rattling if you are really hyper focused on a particular question and all of a sudden the screen changes. Yeah. So just know that, like, build in a little bit of anticipate some of that may happen, and just give yourself grace with that online proctoring. But it certainly is convenient and it can be really a great resource.
When they stop you, right, and you're thinking, right, and so you look off the side of the screen, and when they stop you, first of all, you think the whole program has crashed, right? Because it just kind of stops, nothing happens for a minute, and all of a sudden the script comes up and they start writing to you. They don't talk to you, they just write to you. And it really throws you off. It takes you a good hot minute to get back into the test mode where you're like, okay, where was I? What am I doing? Did I screw up? Am I failing? I know me personally, maybe I have issues, but by the 10th question of every test so far, and I've got, I think, 9 certs, and I've taken, I think, 12 of them. So I failed 3. By the 10th question, in my mind, I have failed. I'm like, man, I have definitely not studied enough. So on the 10th question so far, like every test now, I take them longer, as I take more of them. On the 10th question, I'll just tell myself, you haven't failed, you're good. Just take a breath, take each question by itself. Don't think about the whole test, because it definitely gets in your head for sure.